Okay, we're ready. Sorry everybody that the live video didn't work out. I didn't want to run that and have it be freezing and all crazy for you the whole time and fighting technology constantly. So we are going to do the tutorial and then we're going to post that and then you'll be able to watch it. So I'm Judelle. I'm Judy's daughter, and you can see Judy over here in the other screen, and she's going to do the workshop. So I'm going to switch it over to her and she's going to start, and I'm just going to run the views. So, all right. Go ahead, Mom.
Hi, everybody. Sorry this didn't work out, but I'm still going to pretend like you're watching me every step of the way. So it's going to be just pretty much a constant video, and you guys will be able to shut it off and stop whenever you want. So we're doing the video today on the beach house pattern, and the quilt is behind me. And this is an older pattern that we created several years ago, and it uses what we call a cutout technique, which means that you actually make all of the log cabin blocks, then you come out back to your blocks and you cut out the space, and we add the geese into the middle of it. When we started doing this, we thought, well, nobody's going to want to cut that out. But then we started looking at it yardage wise and stuff, and it actually uses so much less yardage doing it this way, and the accuracy is really nice, and you don't have to worry about trying to get all of your pieces and colors by if we had actually done 3 different units. So this is a really cool technique, and so I'm going to just kind of get started with some stuff in the pattern. So I made a bunch of this last night, and I want to go through a few of the general information just so you guys know how to read a pattern. And am I underneath, Judelle? Do I have the camera on me?
I can switch to that view. Hold on a minute. Okay.
Okay, so if you're looking at I've got other stuff on my table, and I'm just going to move this out of the way. So we're looking at the front page, and basically under general information, the first thing I want to point out to you is this just tells you what the name of the pattern is, that Bradley and I and Judelle basically are the designers of the company, and it tells you what what we named the blocks. So we actually have what we call a log cabin block, which is our log cabin. And then we have what we call the circling geese units. And these are the pieces that we cut in and put into it after the fact. Okay? So first of all, we're going to make the log cabin, and then we'll come back and we'll make the geese blocks. All right? The newsprint, it just tells you that we print everything on newsprint. And I want you right here, you're going to see where it says TP 101. It says you have 2 pages. Those are your template pages, and I'm going to show you how to work with those. And then you have your log cabin pages that have the arcs and the geese on, the log cabin blocks and the geese on there. And that information is really important when you're reading a pattern, because it tells you what's in your pattern. And if you're missing something, this is where you'll find out if you're missing extra pages. So if I said I had 8 pages and you had 6 pages, that would mean you were missing something. Okay. Underneath there, it goes to corrections. So you can actually scan the code on here. This is QR code. And the corrections for the pattern will come up for you. One thing I want to bring to your attention on the corrections is on your pattern, we print on demand, so the print date, the day it's printed, actually shows up on the back of the pattern right at the bottom. And if you look at the QR information and you see corrections on there, check that date, because if the date comes after, if the print date is after the date that's on the day we posted them, then it's already been corrected in your pattern. So you don't have to go back there and make a bunch of changes for anything that was posted previous to the date we printed this, all right? Then we just have a whole bunch of general supplies, and these are just tools that we use all the time. They're paper piecing supplies. And then in the second column, I actually have a definition of common tools. And so things you're going to get used to when you work with our pattern are add-a-quarter rulers. You're going to have a washout fabric glue pen. We use a repositionable glue and a glue pen, and sometimes I use another glue called Yoo-Hoo, and I won't be using it for this, so I don't have it with me. We have flower pens. We have a fold template, and I have some metal fold templates that I made for myself, and then we also have some plastic ones that we work with. Either one will work for you. We have 3 different types of rulers that we like to use. We have the 18-inch ruler, which we're going to be using this mostly for this pattern. And then we also have the 12-inch, and these are all 2.5-inch rulers. And then we also have a little ruler, and it's on the floor, so I'll show you that. And there's my little ruler. So if you get started working with our patterns, just get all 3 sizes, because you're going to use them. Sometimes you'll use all 3 sizes in one particular pattern, and it's really nice to have the different sizes, because if you're working with something small, you don't want to be working with an 18-inch ruler. All right. So we also have fold templates that correspond to all of our ruler sizes as well. And then the other thing you need to know is the sewing lines on your foundation papers. So when you look at your foundation papers, there's actually what we call a sew line, and that's the black lines. We sew on the black lines, and they're labeled with line numbers. So you start out line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, line 5. And then we also have a dashed line. And the dashed line is actually a line that represents the 1/4-inch seam allowance. So after you cut your fabric, your cut fabric's going to match up to that line. Dashed line is really important for paper piecing because it tells you how big that section is. And when we fold over our papers, you're going to see me use that dashed line many times throughout these instructions, okay? The other thing you need to be familiar with when you're reading our instructions is what the sew side is. And a sew side is marked on all of your templates. And that's the side that we actually line up when we're doing our cutting. The right side of the paper is actually the printed side of the paper, okay? And it matches up to the back side of your fabric, okay? The wrong side of the paper doesn't have any lines on it, but we will be marking some lines on the back side. And this actually matches up to the right side of the fabric. So it's just the opposite of your fabric, because basically we butt the wrong side of the fabric up with the wrong side of the paper in the process of paper piecing. So those are some general definitions that you have to understand about the paper piecing, and it might be too much to understand if this is the first time that you've ever watched me, but by the time the video is over, it's all going to start making sense to you how we work with those definitions, okay? We're also, in this video, we're going to teach you how we do foundation paper piecing. We're going to teach you how to work with cutting techniques, where we do fast cutting techniques using template layout sheets. We're going to show you how to stack your fabric so that everything is always, before you start sewing, we always have everything stacked in the sewing order. So those are 3 general techniques that we use in every single pattern that we write. So then when we get into the foundation paper piece templates, I'm actually just going to start going through these now and showing you what you're going to find, and how to prepare them. So instead of just telling you what's in it, we're going to start working with the instructions at this point. I do want to bring your attention, if you have the pattern in front of you, that on page 3 in the second column, there are pictures of your foundation papers and your newsprint. And when you're looking at these pictures, if you cut everything out and you lose something, and then you call us and you say, I didn't get these pieces, before you say that, you need to look, because if it's printed on that page and you see it on that page, then it means that you probably put it in the wrong bag in the process, or you've lost it. And if you look at those pictures and you are actually missing something, or you lost something, you can see what it is that you lost. And that number right at this edge there says NP202. We have to know what that number is before we can figure out what unit you might need to have replaced, okay? So that's very important to us. If we don't know what that number is, then we can't help you find the units, because we have thousands of units for different patterns, and they all say unit A, unit B, unit C as you go through it. So you can't just tell me that you're missing unit A and unit B, all right? And then underneath there, it's the same thing. That's a TP sheet, and that's 101. And there again, it has all of the template layout sheets on that sheet. So if you're missing something or you lost something, it's going to show up right there. If you're missing a whole page, then that would make sense to us. But if you're only missing a few pieces off that page, that makes no sense unless you lost them. Okay, so make sure that you know those things. After it's all cut up, it's really hard to figure out whether or not you have it or whether it's been lost. And so that's where you're going to come back to when you're looking at that. All right. So let's see. What we're going to do is we're going to turn on the light table. And the first thing I want to do is go through and show you how to cut out your foundation papers, all right? So we're going to switch the camera over and go over to my light table. And I'm going to turn it on. So I'm going to show you 2 ways you can work with your foundation papers as far as stacking. If you have a light table, it works really slick, because you can usually see about 4 layers of paper, and you can glue these somewhat together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the areas on my bottom sheet that don't have any printing on them, and I'm just going to put a little bit of the repositionable glue in those areas. You don't want to get it on your actual paper. And then we're going to take another sheet, and we're going to line it right up, and every line is going to be lined up perfectly. And after we get that lined up, we push the top paper down into the one underneath, and it's going to stick to that repositionable glue. And you just get everything lined up. If you have a small light table, you can do this by going halfway and halfway. So I only did 1/2 of it. Now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to redo that again. Okay, so my papers are now ready for me to start cutting out. I'm not going to cut them out quite yet. I want to show you some other things with it. If you don't have a light table, you can actually lift the paper up, and you can put a pin right through the corner. And I usually use 4 pins, and I'll pin it, all of the pieces, just like you were matching them to cut all your layers. And you put a pin in there, and then you would flip it around, and you would put a pin in the next corner. And you can get all of these stacked up almost perfectly. And when I do this technique, I can usually do 8 to 10 layers. Sometimes I've even done 12 layers. A few times I've done 18 layers, but that's pretty hard on your rotary cutter. So, but see how I've got a pin in each corner? Then what we do is we'll actually take our stapler and we'll just put the stapler in here and we'll do one staple. And I'm not going to put them into these pieces. And then I would come over here and put one staple in every single piece that I have unit there, okay? Now, sometimes you'll get a unit where you can't reach it, okay, with your stapler. So I'm just going to quickly show you. I can bring this over. Are we with me? There we go. And I can just take and cut a hole out in the middle of my paper, and then I can take my stapler and I can still reach in there and put that staple in there. So there's no reason why you can't get everything stapled when you're working with your paper, okay? So we're going to set this aside for a little bit, and I'm going to show you the same thing with my template layout sheets, okay? So we're going to just place this aside for a little while, a few minutes, and we're going to do the same thing on our layout sheets. So in this instructions, you should have 2 layout sheets. And we're going to put our glue on them, and we're going to match everything up. I'm doing the same thing with the glue. I'm not putting any glue on the back of the templates. All I'm doing is just gluing the places on the paper where there's no printing, just to hold them together for me. All right, so we have that glued together now. So now we're going to go through the process of actually cutting out your foundation papers. And we're going to start with the foundation papers, and then we're going to show you how to do the template pieces, because they're cut out a little bit different, all right? So I'm going to move this fabric for a second. And a question that a lot of people ask me is, if you have a lot of wrinkles in your paper from being folded up in the patterns, can you actually press them? Yes, you can press them, but you don't need to get all of the wrinkles out. Basically, just do a light press over them, layer them, and then just do a light press over them, because most of the time they'll just kind of fall down into each other as you're working. But if they don't lay down on top of each other, then just go ahead and press. Don't use steam on it, just press them out the best you can. All right, so these are my foundation papers. When you're cutting the foundation papers, you need to cut right outside the line about 1/8 of an inch, okay? I know from experience that probably about 70% of my students, when they're new to paper piecing, will just cut with scissors all the way around, and they leave lots of excess. The problem with doing it that way is you're going to have to do your work 2 to 3 times. If you cut them out the first time right on the line, not on the line, just 1/8 of an inch outside that line, you only have to do your work 1 time. So many times when I'm doing demonstrations in my classes and I use somebody's paper, I have to recut their papers because they left too much paper around this outside line. So we're going to just take our ruler and we're going to set it just outside my final cut line. And then we're going to set this aside. And then we're going to reach over and we're going to do the other one. The reason we want these cut out this way is because we're going to be stacking them, and if you have a whole bunch of excess paper around it, then you can't use the stacking process that we use when we're doing paper piecing. All right. So we have our papers cut out for our project. We're only going to make 4 units today. And now we're going to cut out the curved pieces. And I actually have a ruler, a couple rulers that I use when I'm cutting out my curved papers. I like to just take a curved ruler, and I'm going to flip this one over just a little bit, and then I roll that ruler, because none of my curved rulers will match up with anything perfectly, but I can actually take these and use them as a guide for cutting a bunch of them. The inside curves sometimes don't match up as well as the outside curves. And then we can just come down here and we can cut. Okay, so there again, I've only cut just a little bit on those, so that's the way I'm able to stack all of my papers. Since I already have my papers cut for the project, I'm just going to put the rest of these back aside, and I'll finish those later. All right, so we're going to set these aside, and now we're going to show you how to cut out your template layout sheets. Here again, if you read the instructions, it tells you that your template layout sheets are supposed to be cut right on the outside line. And the reason why is because these are set up to fit the strips that we have. And what we do is when we design this, we'll actually take the strip size, we'll measure our template piece, and we'll normally increase the size of the strip about 1/8 of an inch, so that there's some play room when you're stacking all your strips, because sometimes we'll stack 12 strips at a time. If you leave excess out here, what's going to happen is when you go to start putting them onto your strips to cut your fabric or whatever you're working with, you're going to find that sometimes the pieces won't fit on your fabric because you have excess along the edges. And so when you put 8 of them on there, you might only get 7 on there. So it's important to make sure you cut all of these right on your line. So I can, even though I've glued the papers, even if I cut a little bit off, it won't matter. What's important is that I get everything cut to right on that line that I'm showing you right here. All right, now I've already cut all my papers out as well, my templates out, so I'm not going to make you sit here and watch how I do this. But I do want to bring your attention to, see all the little fabric swatches that I've put on here? When you're new to doing paper piecing and you're trying to sort out, or you've changed the color layout that we've worked with in the instructions, it really does help if you go through and put swatches onto your templates so that when you start cutting your fabrics, you're going to know that those pieces are going onto the right fabric. So in order to do that, you're going to have to read ahead a little bit into your instructions to make sure you're putting the right fabric swatches in there. So we're going to move forward a little bit before I finish cutting these. And on the page 4 in your instructions, you have a fabric chart here. And on that fabric chart, we put the 4 colors that we have, okay? And this pattern is set up to where it uses 8 fabrics. And the fabrics are called C1 through C8, okay? If you read on your template layout sheets, it actually tells you here that that this is for my light fabric and this is for my dark fabric. I want you to ignore that because it really does not play into this pattern, because we actually use the template layout sheet for the light colors in the areas where we have the dark fabric. Okay, so what I want you to do is just come on to right here. You're gonna scribble out that it says light, and then on the other one you're gonna scribble it out where it says dark. Okay, and just get rid of that because it really doesn't apply to the way we've used the colors for this quilt.
And I'm going to break in here too and mention that we've used these blocks for lots of other patterns, and that's where the light and the dark came from, but we switched it up here, so that's why we're telling you to do it.
Yeah, and every time we publish with these papers, we change the way the fabrics are laid out, because you can do that. You can even have some that go on the light side, and like I might have a stack that might have 4 lights, 4 mediums, 4 darks underneath that. So just get rid of that word light and dark and follow your instructions where it tells you what your fabric colors are, C1 through C8, okay? And as I went through my instructions, every place where it said anything about the dark template, I just crossed it off because has nothing to do with darks and lights for this quilt, okay? So one of the things that you can distinguish between the 2 templates is basically there's no hatching in this particular template, and it has the corner block on it, okay? And on the other template that we have over here, this one, the pieces are hatched and there's no corner block on it. So basically I'm going to show you that in this quilt on the wall, my pink fabrics area here includes the corner template. Okay, so all of the cover sheets that we have for the different colors show that the corner one is done with the darker colors and the other template goes with the lighter colors. All right. So we've got that straightened out as we go through, and I really find it's just easier to know where I'm setting my fabrics, and that's why I put my green swatches on here, and over here I put my light green swatches over here, because now I know that I won't mess those up, okay? The same thing holds true when we get into these little templates. So these templates right here are my backgrounds for my geese. They fall into this area right here. And the B group, which is right here, this is my B group, is actually the light colors. And then it has dark geese. The A group on here has my dark backgrounds and then the light geese. And so by distinguishing that part of it, I know that my B papers are always going to go with the light background pieces, and the A papers are going to go with the dark background pieces. And that's why I put the swatches on there. And when you're reading through your instructions, it's going to have, that's the way the instructions tell you to set everything up in here, all right? So I took this information and basically put swatches on here, and that's what I wanted you to see. On the geese, these are my geese papers right here, okay? And one set of my geese papers are going to go with the darker fabrics, and the other ones are going to go with the lighter fabrics. So that, but the thing that's interesting about the geese is you really can't mess them up. You just have to have half and half, all right? Whatever your colors are set up, okay? All right, so on this template, I also marked here that I wanted my fabrics 1 through 4 go with this one, and fabrics 5 through 8 go with this one. So it really helps to get all of this information marked before we actually get into cutting the foundation or the fabric. And I've already cut all of these out, so you guys, I'm not going to actually use this because I don't need this. I just wanted you to show you guys how to set this up in your instructions, okay? So we're going to pretend that we have everything cut out, which we do, right? So the other thing I want to bring to your attention before we go any further is when you look right underneath your fabric chart, there's a diagram here, and that diagram tells you where all your fabrics fall when you get done with it, your quilt. So if you look at this, it's telling me that my Unit A geese are sitting on the outside, and they have the dark backgrounds, the light geese, and they fall within my light fabrics. And then it tells me my Unit B geese fall within this area, all right? That's the way this pattern is set up, the color layout. I will tell you that you can switch these geese around any way you want, and you can rotate the blocks any way you want. So after you create all of the parts and stuff, if you decide you want to change out the way it's set together, you have every right to do that. It's your quilt, and they can be rotated, and they fit, they're exactly the same size, so they can be actually swapped in there. The other thing that can be swapped is after we do our cutouts, you can actually swap positions with this and this piece. These can actually be swapped. So it's kind of a fun pattern to play with because you can really do a lot of changes on the outcome of the color. All right. Okay, so we're going to actually start cutting, and I'm going to take you through all of the cutting steps. And we're going to start on, so we're on page 4, and it's telling me I want Unit LC template layout sheet, and it says for the dark fabric, but we already know that the one we want here is the one that has the corner on it. So if I follow down my graphics, I can see that I'm looking for the template layout sheet that has that corner on it. Okay, and so I'm going to pull this up like this. And here's my papers. And in my instructions, it shows you how to lay those out, okay? And it really doesn't matter whether the geese goes here, the geese go here. What you want to do is just get these set up as close as you can on there before you start doing any cutting, okay? And I actually cut my pieces just a little bit smaller last night than my actual fat quarter, so I'm not going to show as much waist as what you guys have, because I was short on a couple of the fabrics, so I just skinnied them up a little bit and made sure they'd work. But anyway, you can tell how to set it up, and if you read on your instructions, it tells me that I'm supposed to have this layout sheet. It has my corner piece in it, and then it's going to tell me that I want my Unit A pieces. So these are my Unit A templates here. And then this is my geese, okay? So I'm basically going to glue all these on, and then we're going to cut around them. All right. Now, we're going to make another change here because this happens a lot. And it's going to, if you bought our fabric kits, and we have 4 different colors, but a couple of them have the little mini stripes in them. And so I wanted to do some fussy cutting with my mini stripe fabric. So if you look at my quilt, I actually have my stripes coming across, and I wanted them to come across on both of them instead of having one of the stripes go this way and the other one go across. So in order to do that, I actually had to recreate the layout sheet. And with all of our instructions that we're putting out for our new patterns now, what we do is we create a layout sheet that has all of the pieces for you that have to be cut from one color. And then if we decide that you want to change those colors, sometimes you have options. So you'll have option A is to cut everything with the layout sheet. Option B would be to cut the layout sheet apart and rearrange the pieces the way you wanted them arranged color-wise or for fussy cutting. And we do that a lot. And so I actually am going to do that with this pattern, and I'm going to show you how to set that up so that you guys know that if you're using fabrics that you want to play with as far as stripes, that you have that option to do that, okay? So we're not actually going to cut this piece. I'm going to show you how I set that up. So when you have to cut a template layout sheet apart, basically you're just going to go in and you're going to cut on all of the cut lines. And the way I'm going to set this up, we actually I had Bradley go through and build a different layout for it. And so Judel's going to add this to the video so you guys can see how to set it up when you cut it out. But basically, I put all of the same pieces back, but I'm setting it up so it's going to cross like this on here. And then I just put my other 3 pieces underneath it. And my little square is down here on the bottom corner of it, okay? And we will give you an image of these so that you'll see how to set it up. On the big one, or on the...
Hold on just a second, Mom. So I'm going to switch over to a screen here that shows it. You guys can just pause on this screen once you get to this point in the video and look at that. But it shows both layers, and she's going to switch back and show you and talk about the other one now. But anyway.
Okay. All right. So we have that for you guys so that if you have the stripes and you want to cut it out the same way, you can definitely do that. So I'm going to just keep cutting this apart.
You might mention too that if you don't have stripes, you don't have to cut it out. If your fabric
Right.
is not directional, you can just follow the instructions in the pattern.
So basically what we're doing here is I have my section 21, I put my 20 down here, my 17 goes there. Then we have section 16 is going to go here. We have section 13 goes here. 12 goes here. And then we have 9 goes here. And I might have these in the wrong position. We'll find out in a minute. Then we have 8. And we have a 5. And a 4. So I think these two are in the wrong position there. And then we have our little square. Okay. So now that I know how my pieces are going to lay out for me, I'm just going to move them off to the side here. So we're going to bring my fabric. All right. So you have 4 layers of fabric. Actually, you guys will have 16 layers of fabric. So you're going to have fabric number 4. It's C4. And you should have 4 of these pieces, fat quarters. Okay. And then you're going to put fabric C3, and you're going to have 4 of those. And then you're going to take fabric C2, and you're going to have 4 of those. And then we have 4 fabric C1. All right. I only have 1 layer today so that we don't have to deal with 16 layers as we're doing the demonstration. So now I'm going to take and set these aside. And I'm going to flip these over like this. And that way I don't have to move all of my labels here. And then we're going to start putting these pieces on. And I'm going to grab my repositionable glue, and I'm just going to put a couple swipes on the back side of that because it only has to sit on there for a few minutes. And then we're going to take this one. So this is 21. This is number 4. This one is number 17. And we'll make sure that you guys have the correct layout for that on that piece that we share with you. And this one's number 8. This is number 13. This one's number 12. This one's 9. This one is 16. This is 5. And this is 20. Right. And then all right. So definitely if you don't have striped fabrics, it's going to be a lot faster to do it the other way because you're not cutting out the layout sheet. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my ruler here. Whoops. I need to put my little corner piece on. And I'm going to move it right over here. Grab a ruler, and I'm going to do a full cut down that edge. And then I'm going to actually put a paper clip on this because it still has all my fabric labels on it. So if I need to go back and find those, I still have them, which I'm going to just pin it to the wall there for me. Right, then we're going to turn this sideways. And first of all, I'm going to move this little piece over here, and I'm going to cut out my little square. And we're going to get a bunch of paper clips, and we're going to put a paper clip on that. And then we're going to just start sorting, and I'm actually going to spread these out just a little bit because we have room, so let's just put the excess on it and make the templates a little bit bigger. So I'm going to cut that one, and then we're going to cut this strip. This strip. Judelle, while I'm mentioning or doing this, would you mention to them about the questions and stuff, that, and if they have questions about how to post those?
Yeah, okay, so everybody, let's see, we were supposed to be live, and we're not live because the video quality was not great. So in order to not waste everybody's time on that, we are recording it, and we'll post it here in a bit. That means we can't have quite as interactive of an experience, but if you just want to post any questions either on this video or in the beach house event, you can join the chat, and I'll leave the chat room open for a little bit longer, and you can ask questions in there as well. A few helpful hints about that: don't click the join chat button, because that tries to join you into a video chat, and then it sends everybody in the whole world that's on that chat group a video call from Facebook. So we've had to have a few learning curves over the last couple weeks on that situation. But if you want to ask a question, you can ask it there, and then everybody can see it, which I think is a great thing. Also, if you don't want to get bothered by that, but you still want to have access to it, at the top of that page there is a button that says it says the beach house. It shows some pictures of us. You can click on that, and then it will it'll give you some options. One of them is mute. So you can just click mute, and then you won't get any notifications from the group at all. You can just go in there and read it if you want. You can also just leave it if you want. You can go just scroll down to the bottom and say leave group, and then you won't be in it anymore. But you'll have to go back either on the video, or you'll have to go to the group and rejoin it if you want more information. So we also talked about maybe doing a little live question and answer sometime in the next week. I will post more on that if we can manage to get our live feeds working smoothly. I'm not sure what happened today, because we've used this program and this process several times before, and it's worked great. So I'm going to have to look into it. I don't know if it was just the day and Facebook and YouTube, or if it was our software, or if there was an update in program somewhere and I need to go fix something. I'm not sure, but I will get to the bottom of that, and hopefully we will be able to go live again for the one that we're going to do on December 2nd. Let's see, some other things I might mention while she's cutting. Do you have a little bit, well, you're almost done there, right, Mom? Or are you going to cut more? Okay, well, we can switch back. I can talk about some of the other stuff a little bit later.
Okay, so I'm going to put these in order. What I want you to do is go to, we're going to skip over to page 5, and I'm going to put all of these in order from section 21 down to section 1. And we're going to shuffle and prepare the fabrics for, so that we're mixing them. Because if I don't shuffle them, then you'll have every block will end up with the pieces. It doesn't work out. You have to shuffle. So as you look at this, the location of these pieces changes between each block, right? So we're going to take, and we have to have 21 on the there, and then we've got to find 20, and then we want 17, and then we're going to go to 16, and note that these aren't going to just go down in exact order because you're skipping pieces in here from the other colors that we have to have. So we have 16, and then I'm looking for 13, and I'm reading my instructions right here, and then it's telling me I need 12, and then we're 9, and then we have an 8, we have a 5, we have 4, and we have 1. Okay, so what we're going to do is go through the shuffling process, and if you read your instructions, it tells you exactly what you're supposed to do. So we're shuffling fabric C1 through C4. So we're going to go down to, it tells me that my very first section, I do not shuffle. I'm just going to leave it. All right. And we're going to just turn it over. And then in step 4, it tells me to remove the paper clip from sections 4 and 5. So both of these. And we're going to take the top piece of fabric and we're going to place it on the bottom, and I'm going to pull the template off because I want the template to stay on the top, and we're just going to move the top fabric to the bottom. Then we're going to put the template back on, flip it over, and the reason I'm flipping them over is that way I know I did what it told me to do. Okay. And now I'm going to go to the next one, and it tells me sections 8 and 9. We're going to remove the paper clip, and we're going to shuffle fabric C1 and C2 down to the bottom. So you want to go, just take the top 2 pieces, and you're going to put them right underneath like that. That way you're not changing the order. And now we're to step 6. It tells me to shuffle the top 3 pieces on sections 12 and 13, which basically means that the green, my top fabric's going to end up on the bottom. So all I have to do is just move it to the bottom, like that. Okay. Then we go to the next one. It says step 7, sections 16 and 17 are not shuffled. So we're just going to flip them over. And then step 8 tells me 20 and 21 to shuffle fabric C1. And remember, you guys have 4 of each color, so you're going to be shuffling all 4 of those colors in your stacks because you have 4 of each color combination, which is 16 pieces.
I think, Mom, you should go back and check the shuffling, not on, so you did those 2, and then you had the 2 you didn't shuffle, the ones before that. I think you might have double checked.
Because step 7, 16 and 17, you don't shuffle it.
Right. So, but, yeah, so those 2 are correct that you just did.
Yep.
So are the 2 that aren't shuffled.
Yeah.
The one before that, I think you got to take all 3 pieces under.
I did. So basically all I did is the green ends up on the bottom.
No, you got to take 2 more pieces.
No, I took all 3 of them. Took 1, 2, 3.
So what does your one piece look like?
Huh? Number 1 is this fabric right here.
So you need to have 1, 2, and 3. Go back to that.
I did it right.
Trust, I think.
This started like this.
Yep. So now you need to take 3 pieces.
1, 2, and 3.
There
You're right. I did it backwards.
There you go.
There you go.
Now you're right.
See? She was right.
Just watch your shuffles, everybody. There you go. Well, wait. Do it. Yeah. Okay, there you go.
All right, now we're good. Okay, so we're just going to take these and set these aside. And I'm going to take my geese because we're not going to work with the geese for a little bit. And we're going to put those down here. And now we're going to do the other 4 colors. And I've already got this one set up. So all I have to do is cut it apart. And notice that you have some bigger pieces on this one. So we're going to cut. And we're going to put a binder on paper clip on there. And we're going to keep that. So on these pieces I did the same thing because I have a stripe in this pile as well. So I have 2 stripes in my pattern. I'm going to put a paper clip on this.
Okay, so while she's cutting those strips apart, I'm going to switch over to a couple different views. Hold on. I had to turn my mic back on. So while she's cutting those strips apart, I'm going to switch over to a couple different views here. So the first one is to our YouTube channel. I just want to show you all where to go to get to the video. So on the YouTube channel, you'll see videos and you'll see playlists. We'll add a little playlist here for Beach House. If you click on that, you can see all the different videos that we have classes for on YouTube. So if this is your first time ever with us, note that there's a lot of other options. Some of these don't have the entire pattern, they only have portions of the quilt in there, but we decided to pull them all together. So you'll also be able to find the video under video. You can see the one that I'm probably going to go out here and delete after this is over and replace with the correct video. So the other place I wanted to take you was to the website. So on our Quiltworx website, if you go to products and patterns, then you can find the Beach House listing. There you can find kitting sheets that give you some color options. You can also find replacement papers if you want to make a second sample. You can also click on the Buy Now button, and under Buy Now you can find, I'm going to scroll down here. So here's the main pattern. Here's replacement papers. And then there's also ways that you can make this bigger. So if you want to make this into a 3x3 layout, you need the Beach House, plus you need the Beach House extra foundations, and you need 2 sets of those. If you want to make it into a 104-inch square quilt, you'll need the Beach House original pattern plus 3 of the Beach House. And you can even turn this on point, and it's bin size. strategically so that it fits inside of our on point borders. So you'll need to purchase a border. So any of these that say 242C, you need one of those first to go around the original beach house pattern, and that goes around the beach house pattern with the border. And then you can also get some of our D papers to make, so once it's turned on point, you can add a D border. So all of our D borders are there as well, and I'll show you a couple quick pictures of what that looks like here. So I'm going to switch over to here, go to Quiltster, and I did some samples in Quiltster. So if you click on Marketplace, I turned them into kits for you guys so that if anybody actually just wants to buy one of these, we do have a few available, but mostly I just wanted to show you what they look like. So here is what it looks like. This one here with, on the right, has the beach house in the center plus a C border and a D border turned on point. Then there's an 80-inch option, which is a 3x3 layout, and then the 4x4 layout is 104 inches. And then you'll also notice some that are tiny here that are just one block. Those are actually a different pattern called Lincoln Log Cabins, but it uses the same fabrics or the same blocks. And so if you're making that, you just want to try out something small with this, you can do that as well. So I'm going to switch back over to Mom now. Okay, go ahead, Mom.
All right. So I just went through, these are my lighter fabrics. These are actually my C5, C6, C7, and C8. And note that I have my hatching, the template layout sheet that had the hatching. And I mentioned before that I had some stripes in this as well, so I had pre-cut those templates so you guys didn't have to watch that. But we do have the layout for that as well, okay? So I've got, we're ready to do the shuffling, so instead of putting paper clips, I'm going to shuffle first. And the shuffling for these pieces is on page 6 in the first column, all right? And we're going to do the same thing. So it tells me under the shuffling information, and I already organized them here by number. 2 and 3, I don't shuffle, okay? And then we go to step 2, it tells me 6 and 7, you're going to shuffle fabric C5 to the bottom. And this is my fabric C5, so that goes to the bottom. You guys will have 4 pieces of C5 that you will put on the bottom. And make sure you get your numbers back in order as you stack them. So then the next one says 10 and 11, which this is 10 and 11. I'm going to shuffle fabric 5 and 6 to the bottom. So we're going to pick up 5 and 6, and we're just going to put it underneath the bottom. 5 and 6, put it under the bottom. And one thing that's kind of cool about this technique for shuffling is once you understand how to go through the shuffling process, you can incorporate shuffling into all kinds of patterns. And what it does is it mixes up your pieces in the backgrounds, or it can mix up the way your spikes are set up, but it'll make everything evened out as you go, and instead of just throwing them all in a bag and trying to do a mix of colors, this keeps everything in order for you. So now I have 14 and 15, and it says to shuffle fabric C5, C6, and C7. So we'll see if we can do this one right. So I bring the bottom one to the top. And we're going to bring the bottom color to the top. Now Judelle can't tell me to go back and correct it. Okay, so 14 and 15. And then it says 18 and 19 are not shuffled. All right, so we're getting ready now. Our next place that we're going to go is we're going to sort all of our strips into the sewing order, okay? And so we're basically going to get everything stacked in the order in which we're going to sew them onto the foundation papers. And these are my foundation papers right here. And so I have this memorized, but you guys don't. But basically what's going to happen is as we start, this is going to be my number 1 paper. This is number 2 paper, 3 paper, and 4 paper. And what you want to do is find the very last section, and you're going to write that on there. So I'm going to number my papers 1, and I'm going to number them on the front and the back. 2, this is 3, and this is number 4. So it's very important that you number these, because every time you pick them up to sew, you take them to the iron and you press, you want these papers to always start, and you're going to start each of the stacking processes when you put the fabric underneath it in the same order, because all of our fabrics are set up to match this. So basically what we've done here is we're setting it up for our sewing order. So let's go ahead and we're going to get this started. We have our papers numbered here.
Also, remember, she's only doing 4 blocks for the demo today. You'll actually have 16 blocks to do.
So everything will be repeated 4 times as you go through your stacks. And you want to do it that way, because it can get really confusing if you try to separate it out into 4 different groups, because that's what I had to do last night. All right, you guys want to keep them all together and set up all 16 at the same time. All right, so if you look at where it says sorting and stacking, bag number 1, underneath there it's going to have section 21 is going to be on the very bottom. And then you're going to find section 20 is next. And then it tells us to add section 19, which is my other color, and then section 18. So you should be doing 2 of your darker colors, 2 of your lighter colors, 2 darker colors. And then it's going to go 17 and 16. And then this one should be 15 and 14. And then we should have 13 and 12. And then we have 11 and 10, 9 and 8, 7 and 6, 5 and 4, 3 and 2, and 1. So everything is stacked now in the order in which we're going to pick it up. And what we want to do is set these up and off to the side so that we have our work area here. So I'm going to actually take all of these and move them over here on my table and keep them right there. Okay? And now we're going to start with the paper piecing. And basically I'm not going to read all of the instructions for paper piecing because I know how to do this and I've memorized it. You guys are probably going to have to read the instructions to get you started on there, or watch the video, okay? but you're going to be doing 4 of each color combination as you go. So all 16 of your papers are going to be stacked, where I'm only going to have 4 of them, right? And you have to keep, you're going to number your papers. You really should number your papers instead of 1 through 16. Go 1, 1, do 4 with the number 1, 4 with the number 2, 4 with the number 3, and 4 with the number 4, instead of going 1 through 16, because it's going to get you to the same place. And it doesn't matter if 1, 1, and 1, and 1, the 4 ones get mixed up, but it will matter if they get mixed up with number 2s. All right. All right, so I'm going to close my book because I know what I'm doing. I'm going to set it aside, and I'm just going to talk as if you're standing in front of me. Okay, so before we start on the foundation papers, there's some things that I want to go over with you guys. You have to be able to see where to put the papers, these fabrics on the back side. And there's no lines back there. And so what I'm going to do is show you how to set these lines up so that you can always see exactly where to place it. All right? So if I actually come in here and I've got a black marking pencil, I should have a black marking pencil. I don't. I thought I did. Oh, there it is. I'm going to find and mark the corners on each group like that. And I don't really want them marked on the front side. I want them marked on the back side. Okay?
And it's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to tell, Mom, in the video where I'm watching, but she's marking the dashed line, not the solid line there.
I am marking the dashed line. So what I'm going to do is take them over to my light table, and we're going to mark all 4 of these papers, because you're going to need these marks on here, because it's going to tell you exactly where those sections are. So let's go back to the light table, and when I'm done marking, I'm going to take a little ruler with me, and we're just going to take each paper, and I'm going to turn my light table back on. So it's really easy to see, and you're just going to mark every single corner. And what I do is just work my way out one corner at a time. And then we're going to do this corner.
And if you don't have a light table, you can do this on the window. You can also use a ruler and fold it on that line and get a little crease and then mark the crease.
And probably the black marker will show through if you don't, and you can mark them on the front side as well with just a black marker, but you don't want to mark all the line, because that gets really confusing.
And I would also add, she's saying that because in some patterns you do mark all the lines. And it probably actually tells you in the instructions to mark the whole line. So.
Okay, so can you see that, the way that looks?
Hold on just a second. Okay, there we go.
Can they see that?
Yep.
Get that down on there. So I'm going to do that to the rest of my pages. I should have done this before and I forgot.
Let's see, is there anything else I can show them while we're doing that? How about, we could talk about the fact that we're going to have a fun sale coming up for Mom's
And you can
birthday.
also show them the 3 different color kits or the 4 color kits that we have.
We could do that too. Let me grab those really quick. So I'm going to show you the 4 color kits that we have for this class. So we actually did this in conjunction, I'm knocking them all down here, with Free Spirit. And I have to set these on the floor. And we worked with Tula Pink Fabrics from her Tiny Stripes and Tiny Dots collection, and also her True Colors. And we're doing 4 classes with these. And this is the first of 4 beginner classes that we're going to do. So I'm going to switch this view now. Hold on just a second. Okay. Hi. I'm behind the camera. So anyway, this is one of the colorways. So this is in a blue, all of her blues from those, from that fabric collection. And then there's the one that's on the wall, which is in pink. So this is, and it's called Valentine colorway, I think. And then there's a peaches and cream colorway, which uses oranges and yellows and kind of corally colors. And then we also have the green one, which is the one that Mom is making today. I don't know, the color isn't coming in great on that, but anyway, it's green, not black and white. So those are the 4 colors that we're doing of the beach house. So if you are watching and tuning in on this and trying to learn more and want to get a kit, we have those 4 colorways. We also have a few examples of the bigger sizes that I showed you on the Quiltster page. And I'm going to switch back to that now because I want to mention, so Quiltster is a sister company of Quiltworx. It's not only about Quiltworx. We have other products, other designers, lots of fabric companies represented there, and it has a marketplace. So the marketplace, you can actually go and see kits designed by others. There's probably kits by other designers of the beach house on there as well right now, but I just put in, I just have it filtered out to the ones that I put together because I know what's there and I can move through the content quickly. But you can see there's the small ones, there's the big ones. If I go over here to patterns, you can actually get a drop down menu, and it's actually listed under here as the beach house. So check out the, you can also just search for beach house, but I'm going to find just the beach house, and that'll sort out just those colors. So our kits for Quiltworx are available on the Quiltster marketplace. Okay, so see, someone else has one here listed too. So there's one by Cactus Quilting. And then there's, so our patterns are listed on the Quiltworx website if you want to buy patterns directly from Quiltworx, but our kits are all listed in the Quiltster marketplace, along with several other quilt shops. So if I click here, you'll see that there is a lot of quilt shops who have different quilt kits from Quiltworx listed in the marketplace. In addition to that, let's see, I want to go back. I'm going to clear that filter out, so I'm just going to click this. We have some upcoming classes coming for a couple other projects, and I guess this might be a good time to mention that right now. The one that's coming on December 2nd is for a pattern called the Goodnight Star. So I'm going to go down here and sort out. I'm going to click Quiltworx, and then I'm going to click, then I'm going to go down to patterns, and I'm going to click the Goodnight Star. So you can shop out of the Quiltster marketplace without having a subscription to Quiltster and just buy kits from here. If you want to actually color it, like color your pattern and prepare it in your own fabrics, you can actually do that right in Quiltster as well. So I don't know that we really have time for a Quiltster demo today, but I'll be doing some more, and we can show you that at some other point here. Maybe I'll do one as a pre-class to the video for Goodnight Star Tula. So anyway, this is the kit for the Goodnight Star. This is the next one we're going to do. December 2nd, you can join us and you can make this quilt. It finishes to 96 inches. We also have one called Star Baby, which is only a block of, it's only one star. So that one you could do at the same time. And we have a pattern called Twinkle Star. Now, Twinkle Star is the same star in the middle, but it's got a tiny little, like, New York Beauty block that sets in the corners of each of the star points. And then it's got an extra border. So we won't be doing all the paper piecing for that one, but we could at least show you the process for getting that star completed. There are a number of other star patterns that use the same technique that Quiltworx makes. So if you follow along with that, you're going to learn a lot about how to make a lone star design from Quiltworx. So that's the next class that's coming up. And I'm going to switch back here to another view because I want to show you guys something. So I'm going to take my camera off here, which is probably a dangerous thing to do because everything's all set up. Oh, but look, right there on the wall. There is the Goodnight Star pattern that we made, and that's the one that we're going to be teaching you at the next event. Over here, that is also in Tula Pink fabric, so we're all Tula Pink in here today, and that design is called Crimson Poppy. It's kind of hard to see from this angle, but Crimson Poppy is it's also available in a full-length video on our YouTube channel. So if you want to step into one of these other projects, you can either join us for that one, and or you can also just go check out everything that's on YouTube and pick one of those patterns, maybe Crimson Poppy. So are you ready, Mom?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, back to Judy.
All right, so we're going to start with the paper piecing process. And for what I'm doing, I literally only need my papers, I need my ruler, and I'm going to work with the big ones. I need my rotary cutter, I need a fabric glue stick, and a little pair of scissors that has a curve on it. All right, and then we have our papers. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with a paper number 1, and I'm going to put it right over here. I'm going to flip it upside down. I'm going to grab my very first fabric here, and the very top fabric is fabric number 1. And I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it right over the center of that box that I put in here. And I'm just going to draw that box really quick for you with a pencil so that you can see what I'm talking about. So right here, and I'm only going to do it on one piece. So there's my center, and I'm going to take my repositionable glue, and I don't want to get it all over, I only want it in the center. And I'm going to put my fabric down and cover that box, okay? Then we're going to take the second piece of paper, and that was number 1, so I'm going to put number 2 on here, and I'm going to put my repositionable glue right in the center. And we're going to push that paper fabric down into it. We're going to put number 3, because what I'm doing here is I'm matching these colors up with my paper. So this is my 3rd color, and then this is my 4th. So realize you guys would have 4 of each one of these for a total of 16. All right? And I always like to push the first one in just a little bit because it doesn't stick all that great. I'm using the repositionable glue on that. And the reason I like the repositionable glue is when I go to pull all of these papers off to sew up my quilt, I don't end up with paper glued to the back side of this, okay? The reason you don't want to get it all over is because then it will stick to your board, your sewing table, and you won't be able to sew your papers. So we're done with the repositionable glue. I'm not going to use it again for the rest of the paper piecing process. All right, so we're going to flip these over, and we're going to start with, I'm actually going to leave them flipped like this and flip one at a time over. That puts my number 4 on the bottom, and I'm going to grab my fold template, and I'm going to turn this, and I'm going to find line 1, and I'm going to place this right along the solid line that's marked line 1, and we're going to fold the paper back all along that ruler, or that fold template I should say, and now we're going to trim. Okay, so this is paper number 4. We're going to pull this out of the way, and we're going to set it right over here. Then we're going to take paper number 3, and we're going to find line 1, fold back, out a quarter, trim. We're going to remove our fold template, and we're going to stack it. Now we're with paper number 2, and we're going to find line 1, fold back the paper, place the out a quarter ruler, and trim. And then we're going to do paper number 1, and there's my line 1, fold back, okay. So now we have paper number 1, okay? So we're going to move these out of the way, just slide them up here. We're going to grab the next stack of fabric for section 2. We're going to remove the template, and I'm just going to get rid of it. This is fabric, and that goes with fabric number 1. And so what I'm going to do is find the little pieces. This is where my little marks are, and I'm going to place that right underneath there, line up the sew sides. So the sew side is the trimmed edge, and you're going to take that trimmed edge and match it to the sew side. Now, we're working with straight rectangles, so they're really, you can flip them because they're the same size on both edges. Then we're going to take the next piece, and we're going to line this one up right along there like that, and stagger that just a little bit. Then we're going to take the next one, and we're going to line this one up. And we're going to take the next one, we're going to line this one up. Okay, so if I just try to pick these up to go to the machine to start sewing, my fabric's going to move on me. So I'm going to take my fabric glue pen, and I'm actually just going to lift the fabric, and I'm going to glue the in between. That's basically, that glue is sitting in the seam allowance, and I push that back. Push the fabrics into each other. Okay. And then we're going to take these to our machine, and we're going to get our machine set up. And every machine's going to be a little bit different, but I would like my stitches on here. On this machine, I'm actually at a 0.2, which I'd probably say on most of your machines it's going to be fine. I normally do a smaller stitch with paper piecing, but because we're going to be doing long straight lines, it's going to decrease the amount of shrinkage if I leave my stitch up a little bit. And we're not really going to be cutting across any of those seams, so it's not going to make a big difference as whether or not it's really a tight stitch. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to run my paper in here, and I'm going to set it up, and I'm going to find line 1, and it's the solid line. So I'm going to actually start sewing about 3 stitches above that solid line marked line 1, which is just outside of the dashed line. And then we're going to start sewing. And if you have a machine that you can cut the thread, that's great, because you can push the button and you can cut that thread. And I'm going to actually move my needle in the up position. And now I'm going to grab my little scissors, because this machine does not have a thread cutter. And I'm going to lift my, and I'm going to lay it down just like that. And then we're going to take the next piece. And because I have those fabrics glued together, all I have to do is just look to make sure I don't have a fold underneath there before I start sewing. These are big pieces, so you're going to have to cut those threads as you go. You can't just chain them and leave the thread in between. So what I'm looking for is to make sure I don't have any folds. And I'm going to actually have you guys watch me put the first 4 pieces on here. And then I'm going to move on to the next, to the geese, because I have some of these already done for us. But I want you to see me get all the way around the first square, because once you get around the first square, this becomes really easy. It's probably some of the easiest paper piecing you'll do. Okay. So we're going to take these to my iron. And I'm going to go ahead and cut all my threads, because I don't like those threads on there. And a good portion of these are actually going to get cut off when we trim. So I probably am just fine. So I'm going to make sure I'm in order here. Right. So we're going to open this up. We're going to take our iron, and you're going to press. And press into the fold, and then you're going to stack them. And that was paper number 1. This one is paper number 2. And it's not going to hurt if you use a little bit of steam with this. You don't need a lot of steam, but it will not hurt to use a little. I like using steam because I like it to really press my fabric nice and flat. Okay, so now I have 4 on the top. I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to find line 2, which is right here. And we're going to put our fold template on there. We're going to fold back the fabric, and the fabric's going to come with it. And then you're just going to lift on that fabric, and you're going to tear the stitches along that sew line so that the fabric will lay flat. And all you have to do is just pull on the fabric, and it'll tear the stitches. I'm going to go down just a little bit more on my stitch length now that I've started, because that's just a little bit too loose of a stitch there. Now we're going to go like this. We're going to find line 2, fold back the paper, tear those stitches, And note that my threads are all getting cut off because I sewed past that dashed line. So I don't have to worry about a whole bunch of threads on the back of this. So we're going to find line 2, fold back the paper, tear, trim, and then when I lay it down, I'll usually crease the paper the whole width of my block. And there's my line 2. Fold back the paper with the fabric, lift this, rip that so it lays flat, and trim. And then we're going to take this. All right, so that puts paper number 1 on the top. So now I'm going to grab my fabric for my 3rd section here. I'm just going to set it up here, and I'm going to look, and here's my marks right here. So I have to be between this mark and this mark right here. Basically, if I look at where my fabric is, I have to have that other fabric has to be centered underneath there. And then we're going to take the next piece, put it there. I'm going to find my marks. Notice how my fingers are loose down here. I'm pinching the paper right there where I need to be, and then I hold on to my fabric, and then I place it. So I'm going to do that again. Offset that, pick up my next paper. This is number 3. I basically have my fingers, and I'm going to hold my fabric down and then position it. All right, then we're going to pick up our glue pin again, and I'm going to glue the fabrics together along the edges within the seam allowance. And I like doing this after it's been stacked, because if I try to glue before I stack them, it takes more time because the fabric's moving on me, and I end up with glue all over my fabric. So this way it's in the seam allowance. All right, we're ready to sew again. We're going to pick up. We should have number 1 on top, or actually number 4 is on top because we start with number 1. So 4 is on top. We're going to sew on line 2. Start about 3 stitches before the line. And then we're going to take this. And I don't need to cut that because I know that it's going to cut it off when I do my next fold back and trim. Just double check and make sure that that fabric doesn't get folded underneath there. Right, that puts number 1 on top. And now we're going to place it on the iron. So when you're done, you should have 2 of the same colors started around that corner. So I have my 4 on top, so we're going to flip this over, and we're going to find line 3, and I'm going to place my fold template on line 3, fold the paper back, tear that fabric back, put the add a quarter ruler and trim, and pull my threads off. Then we're going to stack it up here. We're going to take the next one. We're going to find line 3. All right, I'm going to do one more just because I want to go all the way around the corner to show you. So section 1's on the top, or paper number 1's on the top. We'll start with our fabric. So this fabric is actually going to match up with this piece right here. So it's, as you're going, you can kind of see how the fabrics find their way. So this green fabric is the same as this one. And that's the way we shuffled them, so if it offsets the colors one color. Okay. We're going to sew those on line 4 now. Actually, we're sewing on line 3.
Wait. On that color, was the center block the same color as the piece that you were sewing?
No.
Oh, okay. They're one.
No, it's the 2 greens.
Okay, they're neck. Okay.
Yeah, then we're good. Okay, so we have number 1 on the top. I'm going to press it. All right, so I'm going to show you what these are going to look like finished. All right, so when I add the next color, I'm going to end up with my green here, okay? And I just want to tell you guys that to sit down and do 16 of these, that's going to take you a while, all right? So you're going to have to take some breaks off and on through it. So one of the things you should really consider doing is putting some paper clips on some of these. Before you leave it, put a clip on that. That way you know that those aren't going to get moved if you can't get back to it for 3 or 4 weeks. You've got a paper clip on there and you know that those aren't going to get out of position for you. Okay. And then the other thing you're going to do is come in here. You're going to take all your fabrics, and if you get the big binder clips, you can actually clip them together. If you can't get them all clipped together, then split them into 2 groups. Like this. And like this. And now you can put them back into the bags and come back to them when you get a chance, right? So let's show you what these colors look like after they're sewn. So basically, note that I have a double green. So see, when you're going, if you notice as you're sewing that you have something that doesn't come out looking like that, then you need to stop and go figure out whether or not you got your papers mixed up. Okay, so here's my next piece here. So I started with my, let's see, actually we started with this piece right here. So this was my number 1 piece. This was my number 2 piece because this fabric falls in the middle. This one is my number 3 piece because this is the 3rd one out. That one falls in the middle. And this is my number 4 piece because this is the 4th color and that one falls in the middle. Okay, so that's the way it's going to come out looking, and then you're going to trim it. And I'm going to show you quickly how to trim. I have these 3. Does that make sense? So fabric 1, fabric 2, fabric 3, fabric 4. And then the next round is fabric 2, 3, 4, and 1, and it keeps that rotation as it goes. And you're going to make 4 groups of these, so when you get 16 of them, you're going to have set it up this way. And that's exactly the way this quilt is set up. All right, so we're going to set these aside, and I'm going to quickly show you how to trim. So I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to take I really love the Creative Grid 3-inch ruler, and it's 3 inches by 18 inches. If you don't have one of these, you need one because they're small and they're really easy to do your trimming on your table, and the big rulers are just too bulky to try to turn them constantly. So I've got this set right along my outside line. And I'm going to trim the excess off. Then we're going to go to the next side. I'm trimming right on that solid line, not 1/8 of an inch outside of it. I'm not leaving excess because we're going to remove the paper. So if somebody told you, well, don't trim right on the line because you're going to sew on the line, that's not true when you're making this. You're actually going to remove all the paper before we sew the blocks up. So it has to be cut to the actual size of that paper. And there we go. So that's all trimmed up. So you should have 4 of each one of these color combinations when you complete all of your blocks, all right? So before we're going to actually start working on the geese, but I want to explain something with the geese. So right now, this is just your typical log cabin. And if you wanted, you could actually make this quilt and not even add the geese. Or you could figure out, I only want the geese in this part. This block is really fun that way because you can do lots of different things with it. But when you flip it over, you have these dashed lines right here. Those are cut out sections, and that's actually where we're going to put those geese when we're ready to put them in there, all right? So for now, we're just going to leave it all together. We're not going to do any moving or cutting on it until we're ready to start assembling, okay? So I'm going to set these aside. I'm going to take some other big paper clips. And I'm just going to kind of clip some of my edges together.
And just so you know, Mom, it's 2:55.
Okay.
So about an hour left.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure if we go over a tiny bit, it's not going to hurt anyone's feelings, but.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not going to stop the video.
No, we might go over a little bit, but it's we should be pretty close on it. All right. Okay. When we cut out our papers or our fabrics, when we did the cutting with the template layout sheets, you have your A foundation papers, and if you look at your templates, it's going to say Unit A on there. So that definitely goes with this one. This one here says Unit A, okay? And then this one, if I put this on here, these are my dark geese. I'm not going to see them. So what I want to do is come over to this piece, stack, and I'm not going to do the bees right now, but I need my light geese. So my light geese have to go with this stack, and my dark geese are going to go with those right there. So I'm just going to paper clip those back together, move those out of the way, and I'm going to just show you the beginning steps to the paper piecing on this, okay? Notice that I have all of these little paper clips on here because if I clip my papers before I cut them apart, I don't have to pick them up again with all of the different colors underneath there. It's just a little bit easier. So I like to go through and get my paper clips on, and I put a paper clip on every section that I can put a paper clip on. Sometimes you can't reach the paper clip because it might be a section in the middle of the paper. All right, so basically there's my colors, and then there's one more thing. I'm going to do some tracing on the back of this paper, and I'm going to say this over and over and over again. Whenever you're working with geese, you need to trace the straight lines, and they're the dashed lines on your foundation papers onto the back. You do not need the ones that go in the V, the shape of the geese. All you need is to trace those. And it will, on these papers, going to be line 3, line 6, line 9, line 12, line 15. It's going to take you about 5 to 10 minutes to trace those on all of your pieces. It will probably save you 3 to 4 hours of sewing by doing that, because what it does is it gives you the exact size and location of every single one of your background pieces. And you won't have, it just makes it so easy. And as many geese that I have made in my lifetime, I still trace, okay? So I'm going to actually take a pen because I want to see those marks really easy. So I'm going to actually use an actual pen to do them. I'm going to turn my light table on. And I'm just going to grab an actual ruler, something to mark along. I'm just going to do my ruler because it's easier to see. and I'm going to trace. That thing's flashing unless I hold it on there. There we go. Now we're going to trace the dashed line. Okay, so you can, Judy, you can show them what that looks like while I trace the rest of them. The lines that I traced on there.
You can see where she traced those with the pen. So.
Okay. All right. So we have all the tracing on the back, and that's all you need to do for those. Now we have to number our papers 1 through 4 again. So you guys will have 16 of these. So you're going to go, and we want to be on the last section. So here's section 18. So I'm going to number that number 1. And you would have 4 number 1s. Then you'll have 4 number 2s. You'll have 4 number 3s. And 4 number 4s. Okay. So we have our papers prepared. And now we're going to take, and something that's cool about trying to get a ruler with all those paper clips is kind of a pain, unless you use your add-a-quarter ruler, because the paper clip is the same height as the add-a-quarter, that lip on your add-a-quarter ruler. So you can take your add-a-quarter ruler, and it just sets balances on there perfectly. Okay, so this is actually my A2 template, which is going to be the template pieces that go here. And if you read the papers, there's an A2, all of them are A2. So it doesn't matter what, as long as you have the A2s, they're all the same. They fit in the same location. Okay, now we're going to take the geese. Start here, get rid of that excess. All of my geese templates are the same size. Each one of my groups are stacked in the same order. So we're going to set those there. And all of the A1 templates are the same size. So you're just going to find cut line 1. And on this particular grouping, it really doesn't matter if you start on cut line 1 or not, because none of the lines overlap, so just get them cut apart. And now we're going to take these. So these aren't just, doesn't matter which section it goes on as long as it goes on the inside. And these are my inside pieces, okay? So we're going to stack these in the sewing order, and we're going to start here, and we're going to have a group. So the last piece on is going to be my A2 template, and it has a sew side on it. And then you're going to have an A1 template, and it has a sew side. And then you're going to have a geese template. And what I like to do is take the paper clip and clip those three groups together like that. And then we're going to have an, so we want it like this. So we're going to go. And then we have an A2 on the bottom, A1, and the geese. A2, A1, and the geese. A1, and the geese. A2, A1, and the geese. So basically I'm gonna go, I start with my geese, I put on the geese, and then I do the A1 section, and then I do the A2 template. So it's basically the same and it's repeated. So I'm only going to go through and do 3 pieces on this. So we're going to set these geese off to the side. So we're going to start, and I have paper number 1 on the top, and this is my fabric number 1. I'm actually going to leave my template here because that tells me what my sew side is. So I have to flip this piece over. This one doesn't have actually a sew side, so it's got to be like this. And we're going to grab our repositionable glue, and we're going to put the glue right under, and you're going to bring that down all the way to the bottom so that the bottom of the paper and the fabric are pretty much right even with each other. And then we're going to take the next one, you're going to flip it wrong side up. You're going to put your glue underneath the goose section, which is section 1. Glue that on. Take the next one. Take the next one. And those need to be centered. If you get them too far over one way or the other, then you're going to lose your point on them. So make sure that those are centered properly. Okay, so now I'm going to flip these like this. And that template we're done with. And on this one, I'm actually not going to use my big ruler. I'm going to go back to my small ones right here. And actually I'm going to go with these. Okay, so I'm going to place this crossed right on line 1, and we're going to take our add a quarter ruler and we're going to trim. And that is number 4. Then we're going to go to this is number 2, and this one is number 1. All right. So the cool thing about the way we cut these out with all of the template layout sheet and on top of the fat quarter is you don't have the ability, if you cut it that way, all of your pieces are stacked in the right order. And as long as you don't touch those stacks, everything's going to come up in the color and the right pieces are going to actually match up to each other. So this is my first color, and if I look at that, my sew side was that edge, and I threw it in the garbage. I'm going to show you. So this is my sew side. It's my longest edge there. So what I'm going to do is take my template piece, and this line right here needs to be lined up about 1/8 of an inch inside of that fabric. So all I have to do is just come in here, and I can see exactly where to position it. If I get it way down here, it's not going to cover my pieces. So this line gives me my guide, and it has to set right just inside that line like that. Okay? And I'm about 1/8 of an inch in from the edge of that fabric. Then we're going to take the next piece, and I'm going to use that line as again and line it up about 1/8 of an inch inside there. Take the next one. That's why we want to mark all of those lines, because it tells me exactly where that piece has to set on there. And I'm going to move that one in just a little bit more. There, we're on. And if you look, you can tell if you're on. And then we're going to take the next one. And set it up just like that. Now we're going to take our glue pen, and we're going to glue the raw edges together. So just fold back the fabric that's on the top, that's glued to the paper, and glue those raw edges. All right. So we're done with that piece. And now when I start sewing, I want to start sewing. So here's my line right here. Are we on my machine?
Yeah, there, move it just a little bit. There you go. Now you can see it.
Okay. So my line's right here. I want to start sewing about 3 stitches above that solid line. Okay. And so we're just going to start sewing up above there, and we're going to sew on line 1. And these are small enough that I don't have to cut in between. I can just lift my pressure foot and chain them. This also keeps them all in line to where you don't accidentally stack them in the wrong position. Okay. So when I look at my group of papers here, I'm going to just take my scissors, and this is actually should be my number 1. This is number 2. This is number 3. And this is number 4. And we're going to go to the iron.
Mom, will you push the buttons on the light table?
Yeah. There we go. Okay. All right. Now we're going to open that up, and we're going to press. When you're pressing with paper piecing, you really need to move the papers between each press, because you don't want to just press right on top of another piece, because you can press ink marks into your lighter fabrics if you do that. So just get in the habit of moving them off to the side like that. Okay? Right. So now we have number 1 on the top again, and I'm actually going to go through, and I'm going to take my fold template, place it, we're going to trim, and And we're going to take our fabric and we're going to set this like that. That's my sew side. And again, I'm going to use that line to place it right along the edge, and that's I'm on. Okay, so it kind of comes at a diagonal on these pieces, but you can tell right here at this point right here, if you look, that has to have fabric underneath there. Notice how there's fabric underneath the base, and if you get this down here too far, if you try to match fabric to fabric, you won't have any fabric underneath your paper there. So you need to keep this lined up, and that should be about 1/4 of an inch off of this corner right here. All right, so once you figure out the position of that, then you use those lines to keep you in the right position. Then we're just going to take the next piece, gonna fold back, and notice how you're gonna, the reason why I have a longer fold template is because I have to fold the paper back all along the edge there. I can't just fold right here because my add 1/4 ruler has to set the whole way. And now I'm going to pick this up, pull my thread out, and do the positioning of the next piece. And it might be easier to do this like this and then just set it on top. Okay, and then we're going to take the next piece. Position it. And when you're folding back the paper along these long edges like that, be patient. Don't get in a hurry because it's easy for that to get folded and then tear on you. And it's just be patient with it. Make sure that it folds nicely before you trim it. Okay, so now I have all of those. I'm just going to grab and pull them forward, and we're going to glue the pieces. Okay. Now we're going to pick this up and we're going to start sewing. We're going to sew on line 2. Then we're going to pick up the next piece with my pressure foot. And you're going to sew past the dashed line. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and here's 4. Go to our iron. Okay. All right, so last time I actually folded back the paper and then I stacked, fold back the paper, stack, fold back the paper, stack. You can also just go through and fold back all of the papers, trim, and then stack everything at one time, which is what I'm going to do this round, okay? So I basically, in order to do that, you need to start with number 4 on the top, and I'm going to place this in my line 3, fold back the paper, and we're going to trim, okay? And then I'm going to just stack it right here. Then we're going to take the next one. Stack it. Place it on line 3, and then you're going to pull the paper back. And when you pull it back, you have it sewn. It's right, all of this fabric is sewn to the paper. So just grab a hold of that and tear that back, and it's going to leave a little hole right there where that V is at the tip of your geese. Don't worry about it. Makes it easier to remove the paper, and that's the fabric has to lay flat. All right, so now I have fabric or paper number 1, which is going to match up with the fabric number 1 for my geese, okay? And we'll set those under there. I'm not going to do that because it's basically a repeat. Each time we do a bundle of these 3, it's a repeat. And I'm just going to show you what they look like when they're done. And so I'm going to grab a binder clip here. And I'm actually just going to take all 4 of these pieces, and I'm going to clip them together. Actually, a paper clip will probably work better on these. Set these aside. So I was working on the dark pieces. So these had the dark colors on the outside, and then these pieces here have the light colors on the outside. So that these are my B group right here. Here we go. There somewhere I must have it. Oh, there's the other one right there. Okay, so when you're done, can you see the color groups that you should have when you get all of your geese all made? Okay. All right, so we're going to set this aside for now, and I'm going to show you. I have a ruler. Now, whether or not you need this, you guys should look in your stashes to see what you have, but this is actually a ruler we created. It's called a leaf ruler, and we used it for one of our patterns, our Technique of the Month patterns called Coral Reef. But we do sell just the ruler. And it actually works really well. I can actually lay it and get that outside curve, and it almost fits perfectly along that outside. I just have to adjust it just a few times, okay? Now we're going to take our little ruler, and we're going to do both of our ends here. And I don't really have a ruler that fits perfectly along the inside. This one doesn't fit as well as I'd like it to. But if you need it, you can just set it in here and adjust it. And it will roll around for you. But I also want to show you that you can actually do this free motion as well. What I do is I put my fingers and I hold the paper down. And as I go over each one of those lumps, I just hold that paper steady and just roll around the inside. And sometimes it's easier to do those inside curves free motion than it is to actually use a ruler on them. Okay?
I'm going to mention too, Mom, I don't actually have that leaf ruler listed online, but we can list it online. It might just take us a few days. So there's also a curved diamond cutting and trimming ruler and a 12-inch wave ruler. They all have different types of curves on them. And they all fit different types of blocks too. But I can list it. I've just never listed that one before as a single product.
Well, it's a good time to list it because it works really good for doing all of these. and they're going to have a lot of them. So, okay. So now what I want to do is I need to find, I'm going to take all my pieces and we're going to find these, and we're going to show you how to do the cutouts and then some curved piecing.
And you're at 3 hours or it's 3:26. So you got 35 minutes left.
Okay. Oh, we're not over?
No.
Sweet. That means I did a good job of preparing last night. All right, so we have, this was my color 1. Yep. And this is color 4. I can tell because I have my numbers on the back still. And this one is color 3. And which doesn't go there. Color 3 goes here. And this one is color, this is my 2. All right. So basically, if I look at my picture, my light geese go here. All right. And we matched these up. So I can look at this and I can tell that this goose matches this square, so that one's going to go there. And that means this one goes out here. This color matches this square, so that goes here. And this one goes in here. And then this one color matches this one, so this one goes here, and this one goes here, and then this goes here, and this one goes here. All right, isn't that fun? It looks awesome. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how to do the cutouts on my number 1 block. And now that I know I have these in the right position, I'm going to actually pin them. I think I'll just pin them so that I don't forget which pieces go where when I get back to this in 6 months. So that's going to go here. So it goes here.
I actually think everyone's going to have their quilts finished by next week, Mom.
You think?
Yeah.
That one's going to go here. This one's going to go here. All right, so we'll set those side over here. All right, so we're gonna take these pieces and instead of having a heart attack because you're gonna cut, you're just gonna put this ruler down on there and you're just slowly going to cut right on that dashed line. Don't cry, just do it. And then you're going to take the ruler and you're going to use it as a guide to cut the other one. And then you're going to take this piece and just set it aside. And I'll let Judy talk about that later. All right, now then I'm going to take this one and I'm going to cut on this line. And then I'm going to flip this around. Okay. I'm going to shave just a little bit, just a hair off of that. All right, so now we're going to flip it over. We're going to flip this one over. And then we're going to take this and turn this. And we're going to assemble that. Okay, but I do want to show you a couple things. So, if I wanted, I could put my green in here and my light color out here. Okay, or I can take these two and move these like this. So it just depends on how you want to set up your colors. These are kind of fun to move around, okay? But I'm going to do mine the way that Judy colored it.
And I will mention too, if you happen to have Quiltster, which probably a lot of you may not, because if you're tuning in, this is probably all kind of new to you. But if you have Quiltster, in the beach house one, you don't really have, I didn't load options to flip the blocks around and play with them, but in the Lincoln Log Cabins, you can click on clear block and you can load different blocks that have various rotations and different things for them. So anyway, it gives you all the different options for how you can move those pieces around. And then for beach house or for anything larger, if you wanted to play with that, I would suggest putting them all on the wall and laying your blocks out and playing with it, seeing what you like the best before you sew them all together. But a design wall probably will really help you if you're gonna move something around. It looks great if you do that. There's nothing wrong with it. You just it just doesn't match what we did for the pattern, so it's totally up to you.
Okay, I'm pulling the papers off of my geese unit right now. Okay, but I'm going to leave the paper on this little unit right here, right? Because that's going to make it a little bit easier for me to assemble that. I'm going to get rid of all of that paper, right? And then I'm going to remove the paper on this piece as well.
Mom was commenting that I would tell you what to do with those two little arc pieces also. So while she's pulling the paper, I can explain that.
Okay, Judy, just a second. I want to go over a little trick. Okay. I want to kind of show you guys a little trick that I've learned. Is I started using some of these little metal fold templates, and I can actually take that fold template and lay it right along that sew line, and see how easy a straight line will actually tear off. It works really cool, and you don't end up with a whole bunch of pieces. The downfall is you have to stand up at a table to do this. You can't remove it when you're watching TV, but it does work really good. All right, you can tell them about the other.
Okay. The other downfall is that you have to make yourself a metal fold template. It's something that we talked about possibly doing and selling. Price-wise, they get kind of expensive, so far we haven't really gone there. We also have to do a little bit of etching with a laser cutter or a, I don't know, CNC machine or something, and so we haven't really gotten to that. Maybe someday, maybe not. We'll see how things go. But it is just like aluminum sign. That what she's using is just one of those like little aluminum office signs. So you can go down to a
hardware store
and find a little piece of that, and they work great. So probably the cheapest way to get to that outcome. So then those two little arches that you see, I'm going to switch you. These ones over kind of on, they'd be on the right side of your screen. The things that we cut away. So you can just toss those. It's okay. You don't need to keep them. You don't need to do anything with them. We had a pattern, so I'm going to switch over to the website here. I'm going to go to Quiltworx website. So I'm going to show you this. Quiltworx.com. Now, we do not have very many of these patterns left. And part of the reason why is because they just have kind of stopped selling, but now of course that we do this video and we show it to people, I don't know, maybe it'll become popular again. I'm actually going to do this a little bit different. I'm going to show you how to search. Our website search is not very user friendly. We are getting a new website, but it is not done yet. So what we're trying to do is, so in the meantime, if you want to search for a pattern, the fastest way to get there is to actually go into the main Google search URL and type in Quiltworx and then type in the pattern name. And this pattern name is going to be called Spurs. So if you go to Quiltworx Spurs, then you can see from different quilt shops who might have it. You can also just scroll down and find the one that says Quiltworx.com, pattern, Spurs, and that'll take you right to the page. Sorry that our search doesn't work that great, but you can't just go up here and type in Spurs in this box and have that page pop up. Soon you'll be able to do things like that, but for now, that's not possible. Anyway, Spurs is a pattern that actually uses those little pieces. So you can see in this drawing, there's these little arches there. So you can actually sew those into another quilt. So yes, you have to buy all the background fabrics, you have to buy all of the spikes, you have to buy the fabrics for the border. So if you don't want to make a whole other quilt, it's okay to throw those away. But if you did want to use them for a fun project, you could get Spurs and do that. Like I said, I think we have less than 100 of those left, so if that's ever something that you might want to do, go ahead and get the pattern. We thought it was a really fun idea when we started this whole process or started this series of patterns, but it ended up actually upsetting
some people.
A lot of our Oops, I forgot. I didn't have my microphone on for all that, so hopefully you guys can still hear it. Anyway, I'm going to jump back to the website really quick because of that and just show it to you. And so it was for Spurs. So Quiltworx Spurs. And if you use the website or go to Quiltworx.com, you can either search for it on products and patterns, or up in the URL you can do Quiltworx, and so I would type in Quiltworx and Spurs, and that's what I did before. And then you can click on the pattern page for it. So I would go to Quiltworx.com, patterns and Spurs, and that'll take you to that page. sorry, I forgot to turn my microphone on. I'm trying to make it so there's not a lot of extra noise here. So that's what I was saying in the other picture that I showed you, was you could actually sew those little arches into this space. We don't have a lot of these patterns left. There's only, say, 100 or so, and yes, you would have to buy all of the extra fabrics, and the pattern comes with these little star units that you can add to the inside, but it is an option. And as I was saying, it was something that when we did it, we thought, oh, that's a cool idea, we can just reuse those blocks. But then a lot of customers only wanted to make spurs, and then they got upset because the first time we published it, we didn't put in the
papers.
We didn't put in the papers to make those arches, so then they had to buy this other pattern and make it before they could make spurs. So, I mean, it was supposed to be fun, and then it didn't turn out very fun.
It just depended on how you looked at it, you know.
But yeah, so here we are today with a solution and a way to use those extra pieces that you cut away if you want. And
otherwise, just take them and drop them in the garbage.
There you go. Okay, go ahead, Mom.
All right, so I got the paper off, and so now I'm going to actually sew this piece on, and I'm actually going to do just a little bit of clipping on the inside of this. And I'm clipping that about 1/8 of an inch. I always tell people, before you clip, you need to try sewing it without clipping first, because some fabrics will roll around really easy for you and other fabrics won't. So for this, I'm just going to clip it, and we're going to see where we're at with it. So I'm going to take that and set it right along that edge like that, and I'm going to take a pin and I'm rubbing it through my hair because it puts a little bit of oil on it, and I'm going to take and weave it down the side like this, okay, just like that. And then I'm going to take another flower pin and do the same thing. Oops, I forgot a piece of paper. And I'm going to roll this side all the way over, and right here I'm going to fold back that seam allowance, and I'm going to trim that back a little bit so it decreases the bulk right along there. And then we're going to take this, and I'm going to run this one up about 1/4 of an inch in from the edge and weave it all the way up to the top like that. So when I'm done, I have a piece that looks like this. So it looks a little funny if you look at it, okay? But that's what we do. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to get that so that it sets back like that. I'm going to get my glue pin ready, and I'm going to take this and my finger, and I'm going to fold the fabric kind of like an accordion here in between each one of those wedges. So I can go like this. It's a little easier for me to do it from this edge. And what that does is it fans that curve around, and then you take your glue pin and you're just going to lift this up, and you're going to start on this side and you're going to work back to the middle. And you don't have to find the middle on this. It's going to fall right in the middle, no matter what. And then I'm going to come back here at the other end and bring the glue back to the center. Okay. And I want to match that up the best I can. All right. And then I'm going to take this to my machine, and I'm going to get in the garbage here find a little piece of paper to sew on. And I'm just going to start sewing on my paper. And I want my needle down. And I'm going to downsize my stitch length to about a 1.8 on this machine so that my stitch is really tiny. And I could even go smaller, because if you have too big of a stitch, then the feed dogs jump too much, and you don't want that, because you end up with little, what they call pointies on your curve. And we want that to stay nice and smooth as we sew. So now I'm going to lift this piece and I'm going to line it up, and I have a 1/4 of an inch there. My foot, I have a 1/4 inch foot on, and I'm going to start sewing. And that paper that I put under there is pulling that edge, and so I don't have to worry about the needle taking it down into the feed dogs. After I get 2 or 3 stitches, I'm going to remove my pen, and then I'm just going to slowly start pulling the fabric. And if I pull on this fabric right here, it'll flatten that curve down for about 1.5 inches to 2 inches, and then you're just going to sew right along that edge. And as you go over each seam, just pull a little bit more, make sure that it's laying down there flat for you. You may have to lift your pressure foot to get up over the top of the seams, because this is a thicker fabric. If you feel like you're going to get a little pucker, just take that and pull that back again, and that'll flatten your fabric going around that curve. From your seams on your geese, when you were making your geese, you're going to have quite a bit of height in there, so you just lift your pressure foot to get it up over the top of those seams rather than pushing against the seam. And right when you get to the end, don't veer off, go straight off at the end there. And now, when you're done, you're going to have a perfect curve. It's going to be nice and flat, and you can just tear this little piece of paper off. You're going to cut that thread, and then we're going to hit it with the iron. And now we're going to use some steam on this. We're going to have to let this heat up a few seconds. If you try to steam before it's hot, then all it does is just squirt water all over it. So. All right, so the other thing I want to bring to your attention is I have a pen here, and it's a little starch pen, and it's a product from Acorn. And you just fill up this little pen, and then it has a little brush on the end, and I'm going to take that and run that right along the inside of that curved seam. And then I'm going to press that. That'll open up your seam, and it'll lay really, really flat along there. It's awesome. All right. So there's the first part of my curved seam. And now I'm going to take this one and I'm going to put this one on there. So on this one, we do want to find the center because it's a lot bigger curve. So I'm just going to fold this. And we can tell right now that the center falls right on this line right here. Okay? So I'm going to fold this one. And I'm pretty sure that the center falls right on this point right there. So I'm just going to flip this over and I'm going to match that right in the center. And we're going to take a flower pin and I'm just going to put a pin in that. Now I'm going to take this one. Notice that I didn't clip on this, and I'm not clipping because it's plenty big enough. And I'm going to put my pin along this edge. We're going to put my pin on this. So I'm going to pin this one twice along that edge. And then I'm going to take this one and I'm going to weave the pin up on this edge. And then I'm going to take this and pin that one like that. So now it looks like this, okay? And you're going to give me a second. I need a tissue. All right. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to basically pleat this and get that to lay down right through the center. And then before I do the other side, I'm going to get this one glued in place. Okay. And now we're going to come over and we're going to do the same thing on this one. Now we're going to go to our machine and we're going to sew the next curve. Yeah, start with my paper again. Okay, so I'm going to show you one more little trick here. So sometimes these seams will actually fold up. You can actually take your little glue pen and put just a touch of glue under each one of those seams, and then they don't come up when you're doing your sewing. Okay, so now I'm just going to take this, get that to flatten down. And there's my problem. I need to remove that pin. Now I can pull that back. And on this side, I don't need to glue those down because I'm actually sewing with the way it's pressed, so they're not going to stand up on me. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the pressing. These seams are thick, and so what I like to do is take them and I press this to the center, and then on these will be pressed to the center. Okay, so then as I rotate my blocks, I'll have the other one just the opposite. So this is actually pressed to the center and to the center. And then when you get over to this block, the next block, you would actually it probably work better if you actually took the whole thing and went pressed out this way. And then on this one, you'd press in this way. These instructions, I don't believe, give you any pressing instructions, but then you would have opposing seams where all of your pieces come in. All right, so I started this one, so I'm just going to keep pressing that direction with it. And then when I get it set up, the next block, I'll actually set it up to where it presses the opposite direction. And that'll give me opposing seams. I'm going to grab my instructions. Let me press this really quick. I'm going to take my starch pen. I'm going to run it on the inside of that curve. And then we'll steam this. And I think you guys understand now how those cutout templates work. So let me grab my instructions really quick and see if there's anything else we need to go through. So we've gone through the curve piecing, and then we have the layouts on page 11. There is instructions on this, and there is actually some pressing instructions there as well. And it does tell you to do opposing seams on there. So there's a graphic on page 10 that shows you how to do the pressing. And then the other thing it has in here is it has your yardage for your borders. And if you bought a kit, you probably have the border fabric, which I believe my border fabric is green. And I'm one of these people that don't like seams in my border fabric. So what I did is we set this up to where you actually have the full length. Okay, so you're going to cut these, and there's a picture in here that tells you how to cut it in the full length. And it looks like they're 5-inch strips for the border. So you're going to have 4 5-inch strips, and then the rest of the fabric is used for your binding. So the binding is the same color. And I did miter those, and that's totally up to you. If you don't want to do the mitering, you don't have to do a mitered corner. It just kind of depends on what your fabrics are and whether you want to miter. All right, so that's the way the border's set up. I wouldn't cut those until you get the rest of the quilt done. And then check it, because you may find yourself wanting to put like a little sashing or something else, or changing out the way it looks. And there is a little bit of playroom with the borders to, if you decided to go just a little bit bigger. All right. Now, but you want to measure it before you make that decision. The instructions actually tell you, are set up not to miter. If you actually look at the instructions, I just mitered mine. All right, so you can actually do it the way it says in the instructions. And that's it, you guys. I think we went through the whole thing. And we have a few minutes to spare.
Well, it's exactly 4 p.m.
4 p.m.? Hey, how about that? That was pretty good timing, huh?
Yep, you did good.
All right.
So, and I think we even covered all the extra stuff that we were talking about as far as like finding kits and everything else.
Yeah, so I really want you guys to, after you get through watching and you start getting into this, if you have some questions, please let us know. And again, we want to apologize for this not coming up live. This is the first time that that's actually happened on us, so we're going to have to figure out what happened today.
Yep. Yeah. So, okay. So, again, yes, we're sorry for that. I still have the chat open, and I'll leave that open for you if you want to tune into the chat. You can also just post questions on the feed, and that will work as well. And don't forget, we're doing this again December 2nd, and that's going to be with that the Goodnight Star, the one that was on the wall. And hold on, we have kits for that one too. If you want to do the Tulip Pink version, there it is. So you can find those in the Quiltster Marketplace looking for the Goodnight Star. And with that, I think we're finished. So we'll talk to you guys later, and I'll get these uploaded. And thank you for being patient with us. I'm also not the very best producer, so if I didn't switch the cameras right away or I got the wrong view or something, I'm sorry for that, but we did our best. All right, thanks. Bye.